Look, staying calm ain't about being soft. It's about being disciplined. Every day, you're going to cross paths with people who test your patience, drain your energy, and push your buttons on purpose. Loudmouths, negative minds, folks who project their chaos onto you. The real power move is not reacting the way they expect, because the moment you lose control, you hand them the steering wheel to your emotions. Staying calm isn't weakness, it's strategy, it's self-respect, it's mastery. So let's break down how to stay grounded, even when the people around you are unbearable. You can't control people. That's the first reality you've got to accept if you want peace in your life. No matter how smart you are, how kind you are, or how much sense you make, you cannot manage another person's attitude, mood, or intentions. People wake up carrying their own frustrations, insecurities, and unhealed wounds, and a lot of times they unload all of that on whoever is closest or whoever seems strong enough to handle it. The mistake most people make is thinking they need to fix that or fight it. You don't. What you do control is how you respond, and that's where the real power lives. Your reaction is the only part of the situation that truly belongs to you. Once you understand that, you stop wasting energy trying to correct people who aren't trying to change. Psychology backs this up. Research on emotional regulation shows that people who can pause, breathe, and respond intentionally under pressure consistently outperform those who react impulsively. They make clearer decisions, protect their reputation, and avoid unnecessary conflict. That's not motivational talk, that's measurable data. The brain literally works better when emotions are under control. When you react instantly, your nervous system is in fight or flight mode. When you pause, logic comes back online. That pause can change everything. Think about the everyday situations that test you. The coworker who complains about everything. Nothing is ever good enough. Every conversation turns into a cloud of negativity. If you snap back, you might feel justified for a moment, but now you're carrying that same stress they handed you. You take it home, it affects your mood, your focus, your sleep. But if you stay calm, if you don't match their frequency, you walk away clean. You don't absorb the poison. You don't spread it either. The moment you refuse to react emotionally, their negativity loses its grip. It stops with you. Your reaction decides whether the situation grows or dies on the spot. A fire only keeps burning if you keep feeding it. A lot of unbearable people survive off reactions, attention, arguments, emotional responses, raised voices, sarcasm. That's their fuel. When you stay calm, you starve the problem. And the wild thing is, most of the time they don't even know what to do with that. They expect resistance. They expect emotion. When they don't get it, the power balance shifts. Ever notice how the calmest person in the room always seems to have the most authority? They don't rush to speak. They don't raise their voice. They don't explain themselves to everybody, yet people listen when they talk. That's not an accident. Emotional control creates presence. Presence creates respect. Even from people who don't like you. Even from people who are trying to test you. Calmness sends a message that says, I'm not easily shaken, and I don't need to prove myself. Look at leaders, real leaders, not just loud ones. In high-pressure environments, the ones who stay composed are the ones people trust. Pilots in turbulence, coaches in the final seconds of a close game, business owners making million-dollar decisions. They don't panic publicly. They don't explode emotionally. They slow everything down. That calm spreads to everyone around them. The same applies to your daily life, even if the setting feels small. The principle is the same. A lot of people think staying calm means letting things slide or being passive. That's wrong. Calm doesn't mean weak. Calm means calculated. It means you're choosing your battles instead of fighting every fight that's offered to you. It means you're thinking long-term instead of reacting short-term. Sometimes staying calm is actually the strongest form of resistance. You're refusing to be pulled into something that doesn't serve your growth. Think about arguments that never needed to happen. Text messages that could have waited. Comments that didn't deserve a response. How many times have people looked back and said, I wish I would have just stayed quiet? Almost nobody says, I regret staying calm. Regret usually comes from reacting emotionally, not from holding your composure. There's also something deeper happening when you control your reaction. You're training your mind. Every time you choose calm over chaos, you're building emotional muscle. Just like the gym, it's uncomfortable at first. Your ego wants to jump in. Your pride wants to speak up. Your emotions want to defend. But the more you practice restraint, the easier it gets. Over time, things that used to trigger you barely register. That's growth you can't fake. Real life example. Someone disrespects you publicly. Old version of you would have snapped back immediately, raised your voice, made it a scene. New version of you pauses, you breathe, you assess the situation, you ask yourself what's the smartest move here. Maybe you address it privately later. Maybe you don't address it at all. Either way, you leave with your dignity intact. And the people watching notice that. Quietly, respect grows quietly. And here's the truth most people don't like to admit. A lot of unbearable behavior comes from insecurity. People poke, provoke, and criticize when they feel threatened or unseen. When you react emotionally, you validate their power over you. When you stay calm, you expose it. You show that their words don't control your state of mind. That's unsettling to someone who's trying to get a reaction. Calm is a choice, not a personality trait, not luck. A choice you make in the moment when emotions rise. It's not about suppressing how you feel. It's about deciding how you express it. You can acknowledge anger without acting on it. You can feel disrespected without becoming disrespectful. That level of self-restraint separates people who stay stuck from people who elevate. Every time you control your reaction, you protect your future self. You protect your opportunities. You protect your peace. You don't let temporary emotions create permanent consequences. And over time, people learn how to approach you. They know they can't pull you into drama. They know you move with intention. That reputation alone changes how the world treats you. So when the pressure comes, and it will come, remember this. You don't need to win every argument. You don't need to correct every wrong. You don't need to prove your strength by reacting. Real strength is staying solid when everything around you is trying to shake you. Calm is discipline. Calm is strategy. Calm is power. And once you master your reactions, nobody can use your emotions against you again. Most unbearable people aren't angry at you. That's the first truth you've got to lock in. They're angry at life, at missed opportunities, at broken promises they made to themselves, at dreams that never moved past the talking stage. You just happen to be standing close enough to feel the impact. When you understand that, something shifts inside you. The weight you've been carrying that never belonged to you starts to fall off. Behavioral psychology backs this up. Studies on chronic stress show that when people feel trapped, undervalued, or powerless in their own lives, they're far more likely to lash out at others, especially at people who seem focused, disciplined, or at peace. That's not random. That's displacement. It's easier to attack someone else than to confront your own reflection. So, when someone disrespects you for no clear reason, that's not confidence, and it's not strength. That's pain speaking without a filter. Think about how often this shows up in real life. You're minding your business, working on your goals, staying consistent, moving forward quietly. You're not bothering anybody. Then out of nowhere, someone throws shade, questions your choices, minimizes your progress, or tries to provoke a reaction. On the surface, it feels personal. It feels like an attack on you, but if you look deeper, it has nothing to do with you at all. Your presence is just reminding them of everything they're not doing. Peace is uncomfortable for people who live in chaos. Focus feels threatening to people who are lost. Discipline feels like judgment to people who avoid accountability. So instead of dealing with themselves, they project outward. They criticize. They provoke. They create conflict, not because you did something wrong, but because your growth highlights their stagnation. Once you see that, it changes how you move. You stop internalizing things that were never meant for you. You stop replaying conversations in your head, wondering what you said wrong or what you should have said differently. You realize you were just the mirror's mirror, and they didn't like what they saw. There's a big difference between someone correcting you to help you grow and someone attacking you to protect their ego. The first comes with clarity and respect. The second comes with emotion and insecurity. Learning to tell the difference saves you a lot of stress. Not every criticism deserves your attention. Not every comment deserves a response. Some people are speaking from wounds, not wisdom. Picture this. You're locked in. You've got your routine, your vision, your long-term plan. You're waking up early, staying disciplined, stacking small wins. You're not perfect, but you're consistent. And then someone tries to pull you into drama. They question why you're so quiet. They mock your ambition. They test your patience. Why? Because your forward motion makes their excuses louder. Your peace exposes their inner noise. When you realize their chaos is a reflection of their inner world, it stops feeling personal. And when it's not personal, it's easier to stay calm. You don't feel the need to defend yourself. You don't feel the urge to explain your path. You don't lower yourself to match their energy. You stay where you are mentally and emotionally while they stay stuck in their storm. This understanding doesn't make you cold. It makes you compassionate without being naive. You can recognize someone's pain without allowing it to disrupt your peace. You can see where the behavior is coming from and still choose distance. Empathy doesn't mean access. Understanding doesn't mean tolerance. You can wish someone healing and still protect your space. There's freedom in realizing you don't have to carry other people's unresolved issues. A lot of folks spend years trying to prove themselves to people who are battling themselves. That's a losing game. No amount of explanation will satisfy someone who hasn't made peace with their own life. No level of success will silence someone who feels behind. Once you accept that, you stop seeking validation from places that can't offer it. Think about how many arguments start because someone took something personally that was never about them. A tone, a comment, a look. When you assume everything is about you, you give away your emotional control. But when you understand that most people are reacting to their own inner state, you keep your balance. You don't personalize their chaos. You observe it. Strong people don't absorb every emotion in the room. They choose what they let in. They understand that just because someone is loud doesn't mean they are right. Just because someone is angry doesn't mean you're guilty. And just because someone is uncomfortable doesn't mean you need to change who you are. This mindset also keeps you humble because it reminds you to check yourself too. On the days when you feel irritated, short-tempered, or reactive, you can pause and ask, what's really going on inside me? That awareness keeps you from becoming the very thing you're trying to rise above. It keeps you accountable. It keeps you grounded. When you stop taking chaos personally, you gain clarity. You see situations for what they are, not what they feel like in the moment. You respond with intention instead of emotion. And over time, people notice. Not because you announce it, but because your energy stays steady while theirs fluctuates. The truth is, everybody's fighting something you can't see. Some people fight it with discipline and growth. Others fight it by projecting onto the world. You get to choose which side of that line you stand on. You get to choose whether someone else's unresolved pain gets access to your peace. So the next time someone comes at you sideways, remember this. It's not always about you. Most of the time, it's about a life they're unhappy with and don't know how to fix. You don't need to argue with that. You don't need to absorb it. You don't need to carry it. You just need to keep moving forward, grounded in the truth that your calm is not a weakness and their chaos is not your responsibility. Silence is not weakness. Silence is control. That's something most people don't learn early enough because the world teaches you to react fast, speak loud, and defend everything immediately. But real strength doesn't rush. Real power knows when to hold back. When you pause, you're not avoiding the moment. You're mastering it. Neuroscience explains this clearly. When emotions spike, the brain shifts into survival mode. The part responsible for logic, judgment, and long-term thinking goes quiet, while the emotional center takes over. In that state, you're not thinking about consequences, you're thinking about release. That's why reactions feel good in the moment and regret shows up later. The brain needs a few seconds to transition back into reason. That pause isn't hesitation. It's intelligence, and that small window can save relationships, reputations, careers, and futures. Think about how many lives have been altered by a single emotional reaction, one message sent too fast, one argument that went too far, one moment where pride spoke louder than wisdom. Most damage doesn't come from long-term planning, it comes from short-term emotion. A pause interrupts that pattern. It gives you space to choose a response instead of becoming one. Picture a real-life situation that almost everybody has experienced. You get a disrespectful message. Maybe it's from a coworker, a friend, a family member, or someone online who feels bold behind a screen. Your heart rate rises. Your fingers are ready. You already know exactly what you want to say, and it feels justified. It feels deserved. In that moment, silence feels uncomfortable because your ego wants expression. But instead, you breathe. You put the phone down. You walk away. Minutes turn into hours. The emotion cools off. Clarity comes back. Now you see the situation for what it really is, not what it felt like at first. Sometimes you respond calmly later. Sometimes you don't respond at all. And every time you realize something important. You don't regret silence. You regret emotional reactions. Nobody looks back and wishes they had lost their composure. People look back and wish they had paused. That tells you everything you need to know about where the real power is. Silence gives you leverage. When you don't react immediately, you control the pace. You stop playing defense and start thinking offense. You get to decide how much access someone has to your energy. A lot of people mistake quick replies for confidence, but confidence doesn't rush. Confidence knows it doesn't need to prove itself on demand. Look at the people who carry the most weight in any room. They don't speak over everyone. They don't jump into every conversation. They observe, they listen, and when they finally speak, it lands. That's not by accident. That's the result of understanding timing. Words are more powerful when they're intentional. Silence sharpens them. Pausing before you respond also protects you from manipulation. Some people provoke on purpose. They know exactly what buttons to push because they want an emotional reaction. That reaction gives them control. When you pause, you break that cycle. You refuse to be predictable. You refuse to be played. And nothing frustrates a manipulator more than someone who won't react the way they expect. There's also a deeper level to this. When you pause, you're not just controlling the situation, you're training yourself. You're teaching your mind that emotions don't have to dictate your actions. Over time, this builds discipline. What once took effort becomes natural. Things that used to trigger you don't hit the same. You become steady, grounded, harder to shake. Think about the moments when silence changed the outcome. Arguments that cooled off because nobody added fuel. Conflicts that resolved themselves because you didn't escalate. Respect that grew quietly because you stayed composed under pressure. Those moments don't always feel like victories in real time, but they stack up. And over the long run, they define your character. Pausing doesn't mean you never speak your truth. It means you speak it when it can actually be heard. It means you choose the right moment, the right tone, and the right words. Emotion-driven speech often misses the point you're trying to make. Calm speech hits harder because it comes from clarity, not chaos. There's a reason the strongest responses are usually short, calm, and direct. They don't need extra emotion attached. They don't need explanation wrapped in anger. They stand on their own. Silence before that response is what gives it weight. In a world that moves fast, pausing feels like going against the current. Everyone wants instant reactions, instant opinions, instant answers. But moving slower mentally allows you to move further in life. It keeps you from making decisions that cost you more than they give you. It keeps you aligned with who you're trying to become, not who you used to be. And here's the part most people don't realize. Silence doesn't mean nothing is happening. Sometimes the strongest moves are happening internally. You're processing, you're deciding, you're choosing growth over ego. That internal work doesn't make noise, but it changes everything. That pause is where power lives. It's the space between impulse and intention. It's the moment where you decide whether this situation controls you or you control it. Every time you pause, you choose discipline over drama. You choose wisdom over pride. You choose long-term respect over short-term satisfaction. And those choices made consistently shape a life that can't be easily shaken. Your energy is valuable even if the world tries to convince you otherwise. Every day you wake up with a limited supply of focus, patience, and emotional strength. Once it's spent, you don't get it back. That's why you have to treat your energy like currency. You don't hand money to strangers just because they ask. You don't invest in things with no return. The same rule applies to where your time and emotions go. Unbearable. People want access to your energy. They thrive on it. Arguments, drama, constant explanations, emotional reactions, all of that feeds them. And the more you give, the less you have for the things that actually matter. The mistake most people make is thinking they owe everyone a response, an explanation, or their attention. You don't. Not everyone deserves that kind of access to you. Some people only get distance. Not because you're cold, but because you're focused. Distance is a boundary, and boundaries are a form of self-respect. When you start protecting your energy, you realize how many interactions were draining you without adding anything to your life. You stop trying to save people who don't want to be saved. You stop arguing with people who aren't listening. You stop explaining yourself to people who already decided how they see you. High-performing individuals understand this instinctively. They don't argue with everybody. They don't respond to every comment. They don't defend every decision. They know that attention is a resource and they spend it intentionally. Their focus is narrow because their vision is clear. They stay locked in on what they're building, not on what's trying to distract them. Look at people who are consistent in their growth, physically, mentally, financially. They're not always the loudest. They're usually the ones who quietly remove themselves from chaos. They don't announce their boundaries. They just enforce them. They don't make a show out of cutting people off. They simply stop engaging. And over time, their life reflects that decision. Real life example. Instead of getting pulled into pointless arguments, they redirect that energy into work. While others are debating online, they're sharpening their skills. While others are replaying conversations in their head, they're in the gym, taking care of their body. While others are trying to prove a point, they're spending time with family, building relationships that actually feed them. That's how calm people keep winning quietly. You don't hear about every sacrifice they make, but you see the results. There's a false idea that being available to everyone makes you a good person. In reality, it makes you exhausted. You can't pour into everything and everyone without draining yourself. Protecting your energy isn't selfish, it's necessary. You can't show up fully for your purpose if you're constantly recovering from emotional battles that didn't matter. Pay attention to how certain interactions make you feel. Some conversations leave you motivated, clear, and grounded. Others leave you tense, irritated, and mentally cluttered. That's information. Your body keeps score even when your mind tries to justify the situation. Learning to trust that signal is part of growth. Distance doesn't always mean cutting people off permanently. Sometimes it just means limiting access, shorter conversations, less explanation, fewer emotional reactions. You don't have to announce it. You just adjust how much you give. People who respect you will adjust with you. People who only wanted your energy will resist. That resistance tells you everything you need to know. Protecting your energy also sharpens your discipline. When you say no to distractions, you say yes to your future. Every hour not spent in conflict is an hour invested in progress. That adds up. That's how people look back after a few years and realize their life changed quietly, not because of one big moment, but because of thousands of small decisions to stay focused. And there's also peace in realizing you don't need to attend every argument you're invited to. Some battles are designed to slow you down, not to be won. Walking away isn't losing when the fight was never worth your time. Sometimes the strongest move is disengagement. People might misunderstand your boundaries. They might call you distant, cold, or changed. That's the price of growth. When you start valuing your energy, access to you becomes limited. Not everyone will like that, but the ones who matter will understand. And the ones who don't were never invested in your well-being anyway. If it costs you peace, it's too expensive. That applies to conversations, relationships, environments, and habits. Peace isn't something you find later. It's something you protect now. And once you start guarding your energy like it matters, because it does, your life starts to move differently. Calmer, clearer, more intentional. You stop reacting to everything around you and start building what's ahead of you. Short-term reactions can ruin long-term visions, and that's a lesson life keeps teaching until you finally listen. Every emotional outburst, every unnecessary argument, every moment you let pride speak louder than purpose has a cost. It might feel small in the moment, but over time, those moments stack up and pull you further away from where you're trying to go. The long game demands patience, and patience demands control. People who think long-term move differently. They don't react to everything that happens around them because they're too focused on where they're headed. When tension shows up, they pause and ask themselves real questions. Will this matter in a year? Will this help me grow? Will this move me closer to my purpose? Most of the time, the honest answer is no. And once you see that clearly, it becomes easier to let things go. There's power in zooming out. When you look at life from a distance instead of living inside every moment emotionally, you start to see patterns. You realize that most conflicts are temporary, but the consequences of reacting to them can be permanent. A damaged reputation lasts longer than a heated moment. A broken relationship can take years to repair. A bad decision made in anger can close doors that were meant to open later. Long-term thinkers protect their future self by controlling their present reactions. Every time you stay calm under pressure, you're doing more than avoiding a problem. You're building inner strength. You're training your mind to handle discomfort without losing direction. That's a skill, and like any skill, it gets stronger with repetition. The first time you choose calm, it feels unnatural. The 10th time, it feels intentional. The 100th time, it becomes part of who you are. Think about the people you admire for their consistency and success. They didn't get there by winning every argument or proving every point. They got there by staying focused when distractions tried to pull them off course. They understood that reacting emotionally might feel good now, but discipline pays later. And later is where real rewards live. Real life doesn't reward loud reactions. It rewards steady effort. The people who rise the highest aren't the loudest in the room. They're the most disciplined. They're the ones who kept showing up when nobody was watching. They're the ones who didn't let temporary emotions dictate permanent decisions. They're the ones who stayed committed to the vision even when the environment tested them. Staying focused on the long game also means understanding that not every battle is meant to be fought. Some situations are distractions disguised as challenges. They look important in the moment, but they don't contribute to your growth. Long-term thinkers recognize this and keep moving. They don't stop their momentum to address every opinion or defend every move. Momentum is fragile. Once you break it, it's hard to get back. There's also a level of humility in playing the long game. You accept that progress takes time. You accept that respect is built, not demanded. You accept that real results don't always come with immediate applause. That mindset keeps you grounded. It keeps you patient. It keeps you working, even when the noise around you is loud. Pressure is part of the process. If you're building something meaningful, resistance will show up. People will doubt you, situations will test you, emotions will rise. The long game teaches you not to take the bait. It teaches you to respond with clarity instead of chaos. Over time, that calm response becomes your advantage. While others burn energy reacting, you conserve yours and move forward. Real growth happens in moments no one applauds. It happens when you choose discipline over ego, when you walk away from something that could have pulled you into drama, when you stay silent instead of trying to be understood, when you protect your focus because you know where you're headed. Those moments don't look powerful on the outside, but they build something unbreakable on the inside. The long game also sharpens your sense of purpose. When you know what you're working toward, distractions lose their appeal. You don't need validation from people who aren't on your path. You don't need to prove yourself to everyone. Your actions speak over time. Results do the talking for you. Staying calm under pressure isn't just about peace. It's about alignment. It's about making sure your behavior today matches the future you're trying to create. Every calm response is a vote for the person you're becoming. Every disciplined decision moves you one step closer to your vision. Life will always present moments that test your patience. That won't change. What changes is how you respond. When you commit to the long game, you stop living for momentary satisfaction and start living for lasting impact. You become harder to shake because your foundation is deeper. You don't move with the crowd. You move with intention. And that's the real truth. The people who last, the ones who build something meaningful and keep it, are rarely the ones making the most noise. They're the ones making the most disciplined choices day after day, staying calm, staying focused, and trusting that the long game always rewards those who respect it. Staying calm with unbearable people isn't about ignoring reality. It's about choosing wisdom over ego, discipline over drama, growth over temporary satisfaction. When you master your emotions, nobody can control you. And once you reach that level, peace becomes your weapon. And calm becomes your advantage. Stay solid, stay focused, stay calm.